Hello, you're watching Entertainment Week. Coming up on the show, Ed Sheeran tells us about his journey to fame and how to deal with online bullies. Celebrated director Mike Leigh is here to talk about bringing one of Britain's best-loved painters to life. Micky Flanagan will explain why he's taking on the bike ride of a lifetime. And it's a crash course in quantum physics for Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey, who've been talking to us about their deep space epic Interstellar. That's all to come, but first let's catch up on the week's entertainment news. There is flash photography coming up.
J.K. Rowling has delighted Harry Potter fans by releasing a short story on her website Pottermore about the evil witch Dolores Umbridge. The Scottish hip-hop group Young Fathers won this year's Mercury Prize. Until this week, they've sold less than 2,500 copies of their album. Elton John has called Pope Francis his hero for pushing the Catholic Church to accept gay people. The director Roman Polanski has been released after being questioned by Polish police. The US authorities want the film director extradited over historic sex offences. Robbie Williams went beyond the realm of oversharing this week, posting videos online of his wife Ada in various stages of labour. Meanwhile, Take That released their first video since Jason Orange left the band, and it looks like the trio are getting on well. Spice Girl turned fashion designer Victoria Beckham was named the UK's top entrepreneur.
To me.
To you.
To me.
To you then.
And we saw a very unlikely collaboration as Tinchy Stryder and the Chuckle Brothers are teamed up to create this single for a cancer charity.
At the tender age of 23, Ed Sheeran already has 2 Brit Awards and an Ivor Novella under his belt. He's toured the States with Taylor Swift. His latest single is topping the charts. He's in the middle of a world tour for his second album, Multiply, but he's still managed to find time to write a book. He joins us now from Manchester. Ed Sheeran, welcome. The book is absolutely gorgeous. Tell us, how did it come about?
The book came about, my friend Philip, who did all the artwork for my albums, me and him spoke about doing a kind of collaborative thing a long time ago. And then, yeah, obviously, like when you have success in music, a lot of different other opportunities arise. So with this just happened through kind of right place, right time.
You talk about how you've made it in the industry. You sofa surfed and you slept on the tube in London. It obviously hasn't been an easy journey for you. Were you always convinced that you'd make it and that it would always be okay?
I think the key is not to have a plan B. So basically work, hard work and persistence until it works out. So just not to have a backup plan. Because
you left school at 16, you didn't go to university, and in the book you talk about that not being necessary for everybody.
The reason I did the book is I kind of did it for kids or teenagers to read as an alternative to higher education. If you don't necessarily want to go and be a doctor and learn how to cut people open and sew them back up, like that's what you need a degree for. But to do my job or your job or any job in the arts, you don't necessarily need a degree. You just need experience and hard work and start off at the bottom and work your way up.
Another route to fame is obviously the X Factor. You performed on Sunday night. Do you think you would have made it on the X Factor?
I don't necessarily think the X Factor is strictly about who's the best. You have to kind of be technically great personality, the right story, the right look. You just have to have the whole thing. So I don't know if I would have got too far on the X Factor. But then you never know.
So what do you think about acts like U2 releasing their music for free? I mean, do you think this is the future, or do you think it's very unhelpful for new artists, for artists like yourself?
The thing I'd say about U2 is it's very difficult to get to that point and still try and find something new to do. So hats off to them for finding something that no one expected them to do. Kids nowadays like to own an artist. They want to own music, and that doesn't necessarily mean buying it. It just means discovering it and it being theirs. So when all your mates have the same thing on their iPod, it doesn't make it special. I mean, it was a good idea in theory. It just like from a youth point of view, it just didn't excite the youth, I think. It probably just annoyed them.
Finally, I've got to ask you about online bullying and trolling. You've had death threats on Twitter. What's that like and how do you cope with it? Are you able to switch off or does it get to you?
I think I'm different to the regular Twitter user because I just don't read my mentions anymore because there's one too many and two they can get quite abusive. So I just don't read my mentions. So but I wouldn't recommend that as a way of avoiding it. Usually the people who are doing it are like 11 years old and from Slough. Like you kind of view it like that. Like they're not big scary people. I think the way that I saw it is I read a nasty YouTube comment one day, and then I was thinking in my head, do I know anyone that leaves YouTube comments? And then I'm speaking to my cousin, I was like, do you know anyone that leaves YouTube comments? And we don't know anyone that leaves YouTube comments. And that goes to show that the people leaving YouTube comments are not very sociable people, for one, stay inside all day, and aren't very popular. So yeah, anyone reading bad stuff online, just... I know you can't see the person who's writing it, but just imagine that they're morbidly obese in front of a computer in a very, very dark room, because that's usually what they look like, yeah.
Ed Sheeran, absolutely brilliant advice, and brilliant advice in the book as well. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been 15 years in the making, but the story of one of Britain's best-loved painters has finally made it to the big screen. Mr. Turner has had rave reviews and covers the last few decades of the artist's life. And it's directed by another great British artist, the legendary Mike Leigh. Let's have a look.
Good morning, Mr. Turner.
Martin to Billy, Gussie.
Good day. Delighted you could join us.
Damn fine spectacle this year, Billy.
Aha!
A very fine day to you, Mr. Stoddart.
Mr. Turner, sir.
Constable. Turner.
And the director, Mike Leigh, is with us. Great to see you, Mike.
Hiya.
Now, so many people will know Mr. Turner's paintings. Not many people will probably know about the man himself, but what a fascinating character, so complicated.
He is, and that's what... I mean, you know, I knew the paintings for years and loved them. And then I thought, maybe there's a film in this, because they're really cinematic paintings, you know, they fill the screen. So I started looking at the guy, and he is such an amazingly complex, curmudgeonly, passionate guy. But the idea that this very mortal, real man created this sublime stuff is fascinating. So I thought there was a movie in it. And apart from anything else, there's never been a motion picture about Turner.
Have you changed the way that you look at Turner's work since making the film and since knowing all this information? And do you think audiences will? Well,
I hope so. I mean, look, we've tried to make a film that is entertaining, that's a sausage full of all kinds of flavours. It's not a, you know, there's no cops and robbers and nobody gets shot, but it is full of action and stuff going on. And I think you'd agree that quite a lot of it's tragic and a lot of it's funny. You know, it's a life. It's the last quarter of a century of a guy's existence. A guy that we see him doing it. You know, there are films about artists where you don't see them rolling their sleeves up and getting down to the down and dirty business of making the work. You know, Turner really did spit at the canvas and do all that, you know, and that's important.
It's obviously been a long time coming to the screen. What were the biggest challenges? Was it about money?
About the money, absolutely.
Is it the subject matter? Was it
No.
that you didn't have Johnny Depp as the star? I mean, how does these things work?
It's precisely because we didn't have Johnny Depp or whoever. I mean, no disrespect to Johnny Depp, but I'm sure that if he had been our Turner, A, we'd have got more money, and B, it wouldn't be the film it is. I've made 19 full-length films, and that includes the ones I made for television, and the great thing is nobody has ever interfered with any of them. They've been cast, the content, the way we shoot it, everything. And that would not happen in Hollywood.
Well, thankfully, Johnny Depp didn't star in this movie. Timothy Spall
Poor old Johnny Depp is
did.
really getting a hard time here, you know.
Timothy Spall, a lot of people have said that he gives a performance of a lifetime. He is extraordinary. I mean, do you agree that he is brilliant?
Of course I agree. He's great. He's done a wonderful job. And he really... You know, he went and took painting lessons for 2 years before he did it.
You're known for the fact that you don't have a script, and that you do lots of workshops and there's a lot of improvisation. I mean, how does that work for a film like this?
What we wind up with is a very scripted thing, but we do it through rehearsal rather than me going away and writing it all down and then giving it out to the actors. We develop the action and the dialogue finally in the location, and then we shoot it, scene by scene.
Presumably some actors absolutely love that freedom, but others must hate it. They must be quite frightened by it.
There are actors whose bag it isn't, and they're not in this film. to say the
or
least.
any of your films.
Or any of my films. No, it's true. I mean, the people that do this, and there's a big cast in Mr. Turner, and they're all brilliant, and they're all character actors. They're all people that can play. They don't just play themselves. And they're all sophisticated folk, intelligent folk with a sense of humour. And not all actors are intelligent or sophisticated or have a sense of humour.
Shock horror. There's a batch of very successful, pretty young actors at the moment who've had very privileged upbringings and backgrounds. Do you think there's a worry that there aren't enough opportunities for less privileged actors at the moment? I mean, Timothy Spall has been talking about this recently.
Yes, no, I think it's true. I think, I mean, there are people from working class and lower middle class backgrounds in the drama schools and coming out. They are, but it is definitely harder, as we know, for all students to get... I mean, you can't just get grants like you used to. There are people that are precluded purely because of not being rich enough.
Thank you so much, Mike Leigh.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing your film around the country this weekend.
Great, thank you.
Coming up, our film critic Joe will be giving his verdict on Mr. Turner and this week's other releases. Also to come.
I'm not a massive fan of travelling.
Really? You tell me that now.
Comedian Micky Flanagan will be here to tell us why he's decided to don head-to-toe lycra and take on a tour of France. My next guest is a familiar sight on our TV screens, but not exactly known for his sporting prowess. So we were surprised to learn that Micky Flanagan has caught the cycling bug and has decided to take on a tour of France for his first ever documentary series. Let's have a look.
In 2014, with ambitions to become a cycling enthusiast, Micky Flanagan left the comforts of South London with his bricklaying friend and bicycle devotee Noel Lynch. Their dream, to follow in the tracks of cycling's greatest heroes.
And Micky Flanagan is here. Micky, lovely to see you. Not in lycra, I'm disappointed.
No, I guess that you were hoping that, yeah, but I've taken it off unless I'm on the bike. It's too shocking for people. They just, you know, there's only so many second glances you can put up with in life, that's what I say.
So is this your excuse for a midlife crisis?
It may be. It may be a slight... I think men who get a bike and get, you know, like with the mammal population, something's going on there. It's like a sensible,
or a Porsche, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a sensible version of sort of going out of the house. You know, because if you say I'm going to go and buy a flash car, darling, they go, why would you want to do that? But I'm going to get some lycra and a bike. Suddenly, the wife's going, you go and do that.
What's the programme exactly about? You're on a tour of France, but it's really an excuse for a jolly, isn't it? It's not exactly a travelogue.
Yeah, we wanted it to be an honest show, so we didn't want to start the show by saying we're on a mission, we're going to be on a journey, by the end of this is going to happen. A lot of that slipped to one side very early on. You know, essentially the show is about two middle-aged men on bikes in France having a laugh.
So did you have to do much training? Because I saw you waxing your legs at one point, which seems pretty serious.
Yes, we did wax our legs. I was supposed to try and get fit before we left.
Right.
I was diagnosed with a hernia 5 weeks before, which sort of kiboshed that, and suddenly I'm on the sofa looking after it for the show. So I sort of left for the thing fatter than I've been before, and then we got there and I thought, oh, this is the second hope. On this trip, I'll lose loads of weight, we'll be fine. That didn't happen either. Right. We came back We've got to be the only two people who went on a cycle ride around France and came back fatter than when we left.
I mean, you say you came back fatter, but, I mean, in general, do you think as you've got older you've decided to become healthier in any way? Because you used to be a big partier, didn't you?
Yes, I have been a major party animal. Time takes its toll. Having children is an absolute no-no if you want to stay having late nights. They don't get hangovers, kids, you know that. They don't, you know, I've never had my little boy come in and say, "Oh, sorry, Dad, it's up past 6. Did you have a late night? I'll go back to bed and read." They don't. They just poke you until you get up.
Now, how honest are you with your son? Because we know you had a big partying lifestyle before. There's a lot about you on the internet. I mean, can you be honest with your children?
Yes, but what I suppose I'll do is say to him, "Oh, son, you know, I exaggerated for effect." That's my only get out of jail cards on this one. Is just to say to him, all those things, boy, I just exaggerated to you know, to make me seem more exciting.
And in the last couple of years, you've done big tours. You've played Wembley, you've played the O2, like many big-name comedians. I mean, you all seem to be turning into rock stars. I mean, how did that happen, that you're filling out these stadiums?
The public have a voracious desire for a night out, and stand-up comedy provides that. You know, how many times have you sort of been to the cinema or been to the theatre and come away thinking, no, that wasn't very good?
Well, we're moving seamlessly onto cinema next, so thank you so much. Micky Flanagan, it's great to see you.
I'm a weaver. I love to weave.
Micky, thank you so much.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure.
OK, well, in a moment, we'll see what's on at the cinema. But first, Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey have been in London this week talking about their latest blockbuster, Interstellar. The sci-fi epic is one of the most talked about and expensive films of the year. Our reporter Richard Souchet spoke to them at the premiere.
Everybody ready to say goodbye to our solar system? Here we go.
For all the theoretical physics, this is a story about human instinct, love and survival, hope, and the need to explore. At nearly 3 hours long and an estimated $165 million to make, Interstellar is cinema on an epic scale.
On one hand, it's just a very intimate love story between a father and a daughter, which everybody can understand that. On the other hand, we're going further out into space and out into orbit than we've ever gone in cinema before.
Well, we got this far, farther than any human in history.
Oh, not far enough.
One of the executive producers is a leading physicist whose expertise has given the film a scientific backbone. In fact, there's so much string theory, relativity, black holes, wormholes, and the bending of space-time. The question is whether anybody in the film really understands the lines they're delivering.
There was like this wonderful 8-week period of last year where I understood relativity, but then I made a film about fashion and e-commerce and it's totally gone.
The film is directed by Christopher Nolan, the man behind Inception and Batman, but this is probably his most ambitious and certainly imaginative effort to date.
Time now to see what's on at the cinema this weekend. Our first pick is Nightcrawler. Here it is.
I'm starting a TV news business.
You, get back!
I film breaking stories. Maybe you saw my item this morning, you were fatal carjacking.
No, I mean, I don't have a TV.
Do you have a cell phone?
Yeah.
Does it have GPS?
Yeah.
Congratulations, you're hired.
Okay. We're taking the next right. Good, stupid!
Repeat the police.
I will never...
And our film critic Joe joins me now. Joe, this is all about the sinister side of TV news in America.
It's like a ghoulish satire of TV news, really, where it sort of it bleeds, it leads, and the good newsman is an amoral one. And Jake Gyllenhaal plays this Nightcrawler. I think we'd call him an ambulance chaser here, and he sort of cruises around LA looking for the victims of accidents or crime, preferably white and rich, and preferably the crime committed by ethnic minorities or poor. You know, it's that callous.
And this actually happens in America.
Yeah, and he sells the footage to the LA TV station so they can sort of dish up sensation as well as cornflakes the next morning for their viewers. I mean, it's pretty grim, it's pretty depressing. Jake Gyllenhaal, it's easily his best performance of his career so far. He excels in this sort of pent-up, passive-aggressive, dark character when you think of Zodiac and Donnie Darko, but here it takes it to a complete other level. I mean, even if you look at him, he looks different. You know, he lost 30 pounds for the role.
Why did he need to do that?
He said it's because he's a predator in the role, so he wanted to feel like lithe and always sort of chasing around LA looking for people who are up to no good. And he ran to set and he didn't eat throughout the whole night shoots and all that kind of stuff.
He looks awful, doesn't he?
Really suits the role, though, to be fair. And he's very sinister in it, and he speaks this really weird, high-pitched nasal voice. So, you know, he's fantastic. They're comparing it to Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. And when I went and spoke to him, by the way, he's put on a bit of weight since then. He looks much better in this clip. He's ignoring the Oscar buzz. He's just fascinated that people are finding so much to talk about in this film.
Every time you look down at your smartphone and you go on a news site and, you know, there's a video of a cat falling 40 stories and surviving next to some huge political issue, you know, and both have an equal amount of hits. You know, we're living in a time where I feel like information has an equality, all information. And that's a bit unfortunate when, you know, there is very important news and things that I feel like there should be a hierarchy.
It seems to me it's quite a damning indictment of journalism, this movie. I mean, do you think we're at an all-time low? Do you think it can sink any lower?
Wow. You know, it's okay to have a little fun, by the way. I just want to know. There are two sides to this. One is I feel like there is a responsibility. I feel like that as a storyteller. And I don't look at journalism in a different way besides the fact they're dealing with reality. And you know, particularly most of the time in movies you have to be dealing with fiction. When those lines become blurred and when, you know, you're unsure of whether or not it's morally the right thing to do, that's a question that I think the storytellers need to be asking themselves. And how much do you push those, you know, boundaries? In this movie, for instance, you know, Lou, the character I play, is enabled by Nina, who Rene Russo plays, who buys the footage from him. She's enabled by the station heads, and in turn, they're enabled by us, the audience. If there wasn't some sort of demand, and if people weren't really watching, I know and you know, probably for a fact, that not as many stories like that would be being told.
Thankfully, Jake is back to his best there.
Yeah, he's been piling the weight on. Dark horse for the Oscar race. Be interesting to see if he's nominated for that.
No, Mr. Turner, we had Mike Leigh in earlier.
Yeah.
What did you think? Because it's had such brilliant reviews.
Well, it's one British great's take on another British great, really, isn't it? And he's synonymous with the kitchen sink drama, Mike Leigh, and he doesn't really stray from that here. I mean, this is about Mr. Turner, but really it's about sort of the mundane things in his life, and it never has watching paint dry looked more fascinating than it has in this movie. And it's a tour de force from Timothy Spall, career-defining performance. I mean, it's interesting to see how far he can go with this role. Obviously, one can. I think the BAFTAs are shoo-in. Will he get as far as the Oscars? We'll have to wait and see. But he's sort of this Dickensian, ruddy-faced, mutton-chopped character who sort of coughs, splurts and splutters his way and grunts through the 2.5-hour running time.
It's very curmudgeonly.
Yeah, I mean that as a compliment, because there's maybe lots of 100 different grunt types in this movie, and, you know, you can get where the character's going with them. I think it's fantastic. I think it's his masterpiece. I'm not sure it's Mike Leigh's masterpiece, but in the sort of Mike Leigh cinematic gallery, it will hang in a prime position. It's a challenging but interesting 2.5 hours of your time.
Finally, Horns. Now, this is Daniel Radcliffe, and maybe not his finest work.
No,
Let's have a look.
Okay.
What does it feel like to be accused of murder?
You should ask God to save your soul. I should ask the devil to punish whoever killed her.
No, you don't have to convince me. I believe you.
You don't think I'm capable of murder? Just put me in a room with a guy who really killed her. When they looked at me, they saw a devil. And now I had to look the part.
So, Oscars, BAFTAs...
I mean, you could call him Horny Potter, really, in this, but I mean, that's about as far as you can go with Daniel Radcliffe. I like the fact post-Potter he was trying sort of left-field choices. He was much better.
But it's been ages since Potter.
I know, but...
You can't even use that line anymore.
Maybe. But, you know, Kill Your Darlings, I think, was excellent. And What If, one of my favourite films of the whole year. This, less so. I mean, it's been released rather cynically on Halloween weekend, hasn't it? And I think maybe for a sort of Halloween late-night movie, it'd be worth a watch.
Actual horns.
Grows horns, makes a deal with the devil. It could have been like a modern take on Dr. Faustus, but it's nowhere near that. It's based on a comic book as well. I mean, it's a tough watch. I would avoid. But if you want a Halloween movie, go see it.
Joe, thanks so much. And that is all we have time for this week. Coming up on next week's show, Ben Elton will be telling us about how the First World War inspired his new book. We'll have music from Simple Minds, and Sheryl Crow will be joining us in the studio. That's on Saturday at 3:30 and 8:30 on Sky News. See you next week.